Welcome to Crisis. Are you ready? Because anything can happen. Let's start with what makes a crisis different from a regular committee. First off, there's the size. Crisis committees are typically much smaller. Then there's the staff. There's the chair, co-chair, and of course the crisis staff, which will fulfill a variety of different roles. Next up, you're not really going to be using resolutions except in a select few crisis committees. Instead, you'll be using directives, which you'll learn more about later. Next up, there's the fact that you won't be representing a country. In most cases, you'll be representing a person, such as the commander of artillery, or a general or important president. This also means that instead of speaking in third person like you may be used to, you'll be speaking in the first person, which is a lot of fun. Now let's take a look at the writing in crisis committees that you'll be doing. The most common is, of course, the directive, which is a mini resolution of sorts. It's a specific action plan, maybe it's to move troops, invade a country, enter negotiations, and it's approved by the entire committee. But unlike resolutions, you'll be passing a lot of these, sometimes even 30 or more. Then there's press releases. Press releases are a great way to really let the world know what's happening in your committee. This is especially important when you're influencing public opinion. Press releases can start riots, they can stop riots, they can intimidate enemies when you have a joint crisis committee, especially by telling them you have new technology or other things that might be scary. Next up, there's the communiques. These are often underused in crisis committees. Essentially, they're a press release with a specific recipient. It's a communication from the entire committee to someone important. Last but not least, there's notes. And I definitely say not least because you'll be sending a lot of them. Notes can be to other delegates or the dais, as in any other committee, but the notes that we focus on in crisis are the notes to the crisis staff to use your portfolio powers. More on those later. These are also sometimes called personal directives when you're using your portfolio powers, and you will be using a lot of notes. Here's just a few from my last crisis committee. So when you're in a crisis committee, make sure you have a lot of paper for notes. It's also important to remember that instead of just addressing notes to one delegate, you can address it to multiple delegates or even the entire committee and have them pass it around the room. This way everyone sees what you're saying if you can't get a chance to speak. Another thing is when you're sending notes, you can also send joint notes to crisis. So you and another delegate can both write a note to crisis and use multiple position powers. So say you're the commander of artillery and you're writing a note with the commander of cavalry. This way the cavalry can move those artillery units for a more effective attack. And when you're sending these notes to crisis, the committee doesn't know. So it's all up to you what you want to do. If it succeeds, that's awesome. If not, be prepared for your committee to put you on trial and maybe even kill you. So yes, a lot of notes, and be sure to use them often and well. Now let's talk about portfolio powers. These are also sometimes called position powers depending on the conference. They're the set of individual actions that your person will be taking. You'll usually get these right at the beginning of the first session of committee, and these may be telling you how many military units you can move, what your privileges are as a dignitary. It can be anything, but make sure you take advantage of these in the crisis committee. And now for the most exciting and variable part of crisis committees. That's right, crisis updates. These can literally be anything that you can think of, from assassination attempts to queens wanting to interrogate committee members. It can be anything, but common forms are news reports and interviews with important figures. This is your chance to interact with the crisis staff So you definitely want to take advantage of it. And remember, when you're doing these, have a lot of fun. Now that you've watched this introductory video to Crisis, I hope you're more prepared and more excited for your next Crisis Committee.